It was a crazy Wednesday night in the Magnolia State, but only one of the home teams made it out with a win.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Happy Thursday. Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. I'm your host today, Isaac Schade, and you're joining me at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks so much for making us your first listen or watch of the day. And we want to remind you, you can catch every single episode ad-free on Amazon Music. Special shout out to all the everydayers tuning in with us. And of course, our great Locked On College Basketball Discord members. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Coming up on the show today, I know it's Thursday, but man, there were so many intriguing results from Wednesday night that I thought we would do a midweek six-pack. I even got a bonus for you in that. That'll come up actually in segment 2, because segment 3, Mark Zanetto, the great host at Locked On UConn, is going to join me to unpack their win over DePaul on Wednesday night, plus all sorts of other stuff going on. What's up with the losing streak? They've lost 3 of 5. Tough stretch upcoming. Wensley and McNeely back. All that. Great segment coming up. But first, both Magnolia State SEC teams were hosting on Wednesday evening. You had Mississippi State hosting Alabama. You had Ole Miss hosting Texas. The Rebs win. The Cowbells, unfortunately, could not. And I don't know if you were watching these, man, but it was cinema. Absolute cinema. The games were happening almost identically simultaneously, like 2 minutes, 1 minute, under a minute to go. I had them on side by side. I can do quad box, but I was like, I just want to watch these two games. I was flipping back and forth between the audio. Man, it was phenomenal. Both games were within a possession in terms of them. It was so much fun. I hope you got to experience that as well. Now, in Starkville, we had 7 ties, 11 lead changes. In Oxford, we had 11 ties and 14 lead changes. I mean, that's what we're talking about. These were 2 high-level basketball games between 4 very high-level SEC teams, and it was great to watch. So all that said, let's start in Starkville, where we had our lone ranked-on-ranked matchup of the night. Number 4, Alabama at number 14, Mississippi State. High Tide. Have y'all seen that commercial? Man, it cracks me up, man. It's so hilarious. This poor dude doesn't know what he's chanting. If you haven't seen it, just go look it up. Just search High Tide on YouTube, and I'm sure it'll come up. Anyway, Bama rolls 88-84, and I got to tell you, man, it was electric at the hump. You could feel it through the TV. That place was rocking. Unfortunately, for the home team Bulldogs, man, just a couple late gaffes really might have been what stopped them from winning this basketball game. Kind of final couple meaningful possessions, wide open, probable dunk for Keshawn Murphy right at the rim. I think he tried to lay it up instead of dunk it because his footwork was a little bit off, and I'm wondering if that stopped him from just going up ferociously like he'll typically do. But that would have, had that gone down, that would have given State the lead with 10 seconds to go by a point, but still. Then after that, who I think Youngblood went to the free throw line, made both, so Bama's up 3. State has a shot. They got a look at it and just can't get a shot up. Riley Kugel and Josh Hubbard trying to get a little DHO. It doesn't work. It bounces off of Hubbard, goes out of bounds, Bama ball, and that's it. But a great, 3-point kind of moment there right at the end. I wish they had gotten a look because you love to see that. Exact same, again, these games were running so simultaneously. Exact same scenario was happening in Oxford, and we'll get to that here in a second. So unfortunately then for State, they aren't able to get a look at that, and I know they're going to be kicking themselves over not being able to get those. Murphy's going to struggle to sleep on Wednesday night. Now, what was great about this game is this was an electric backcourt matchup. We had the whole thing with Mark Sears getting benched on Saturday for the second half, so expected him to come back and be on fire, and he was. But then also Josh Hubbard from Mississippi State. Yeah, he's always a dude, and he was. And for a long time, or I guess I shouldn't say a long time, but in the first half, Hubbard goes down with like 5:23 left. Bama was up 8 at that point. And I was like, oh man, that might be it. it was just this awkward thing where it looked like he just slipped as he was cutting over kind of to the sideline to spot up for a three. It just goes down, just absolutely go down. But he's back out before it's even halftime, playing in the first half. So it was really, really great. And these dudes just went back and forth. Sears didn't have the high point total, but had like triple doubly numbers. For Mark Sears, 17 points on 6 of 11, 3 of 5 from 3, 2 of 3 from the free throw line, 6 boards, 9 assists. He did have 7 turnovers too, but all in all, really good for Sears to get back. For Hubbard, holy smokes, 38 points, career high. I really thought he was going to get a 40 piece, and I was looking for that, but on exactly 50% shooting, 14 of 28, hit 6 threes, 4 of 4 from the free throw line, 3 assists to just 1 turnover. Really, really good stuff. But what is, I think, probably the most important thing that happened in this game for Alabama is the fact that we got the Chris Youngblood that we expected to have this season for the Crimson Tide before his unfortunate injury preseason. Season high 23 points for Youngblood on 7 of 11 shooting. All 7 of those were threes that he made, by the way. He was 7 of 2 from 3, also hit a couple free throws. Great stuff. And I mean, he was just rolling. His shot preparation late in the game, I think it was the last 3 he hit. He was out on the wing opposite from the benches. And I mean, just shot ready, boom. It was beautiful. This dude was rolling. This to me was his Alabama breakout, and they got to have it again. When basically his Reitzel was done for the season was when he was coming back in, and it's so necessary. I would love to see Alabama with both Reitzel and Youngblood, but it just wasn't meant to be this year. Great stuff for Nate Oates. Really happy for them. And speaking of threes, that played a huge role in this game as a team. They were 15 of 31 from 3. You're not going to, the fact that Mississippi State was even in this game is crazy given that number, but good stuff. So Alabama now has won 12 of their last 13. State, unfortunately, going a little bit in the opposite direction. They started the season 14-1, but they've lost 4 of their last 6. That's tough. Let's quickly flip to Oxford and talk about the Rebels' 72-69 win over Texas. Chris Beard obviously beats his former team. He's a bad host, right? No, it's just, that's what's going to happen, man. And as I alluded to, whereas Mississippi State couldn't get off that look for a game-tying 3, Trey Johnson had a phenomenal look from the corner opposite the benches right as or just before time expired. And it just fell short. It just didn't get there, but it was a great look, as good a look as you could ask for in those waning moments. But for Ole Miss, man, this is huge. They desperately needed this win. They had lost 3 straight coming in. And had they lost this one, Auburn is now coming to Oxford on Saturday. So it's like you're staring at a 5-game losing streak if you drop this one. So this was a critical SEC win for Coach Beard's team. As for Texas, they take what is a very understandable road loss. But I really do think the Longhorns are starting to get some stuff figured out. Yes, Weaver is still hurt and not playing, but Kaluma is back, was playing in this game. And Trey Johnson, man, he just continues to impress me. Not wildly efficient shooting in this game, but did have 22 points. He had a game-tying 3, about 2:20 to go, made it 66 all. First off, it was a ridiculous look from Tremont Mark to find him like a little skip pass over to the opposite wing. It was glorious stuff. As for Ole Miss, it's a kind of a trio that leads the way. Sean Padula, Dre Davis, and Jamin Brakefield had, I forget who had which, but 17, 18, and 19 points. So they combined for 54 of Ole Miss's 72. Really, really good stuff. So as you check out then, what does all this mean for the SEC? We'll get to Auburn in a minute, but they won on Wednesday night as well. Auburn still leads the way, undefeated 7-0, followed by Alabama up now to 7-1. Florida and Mizzou tied for third at 5-2. Followed then by Ole Miss and A&M, both sitting at 5-3. As for State, they fall to 4-4. They're tied for 9th, and Texas is 3-5, tied for 11th. So both those teams got some work to do. But again, it's the SEC, and this year's SEC, there's probably going to be some teams with losing records making the NCAA tournament. So don't freak out if you are Longhorn or Cowbell fans. Speaking of Auburn, folks, when Johni Broome went down, there was all this talk about like, oh, Cooper Flagg is suddenly the leader and he's going to run away with the National Player of the Year award. We even talked about like, did it flip? let's not just hand that to Mr. Flag yet, because Johni Broome is back, and he is very back. Okay. And by the way, SMC, St. Mary's, they pulled a little UConn on Wednesday night. We'll talk about all that in just a second. Right after I tell you about game time, man, attending NFL playoff games is an experience like no other. And we're down to the big game. That's all that's left right now, man. The energy, the excitement, the connection with other fans, it's unmatched. I love getting the thrill of going to like these postseason games, man. It's just a different type of energy because it's win or go home. It's so fun. And this year, Game Time has made it even easier to create those unforgettable moments with a new feature called Game Time Picks. Basically, what it does is just filters out all the tickets you don't want to buy, so you can just see the very best prices on the best seats. That allows you to focus on what you need to truly focus on, just being there and being present. I recently used Game Time Picks to get tickets for my family to go see Dude Perfect on tour. My kids absolutely love these dudes. The trick shots are wild, and our whole family's on it. So we got some tickets to go see them. I was able to see what our view from our seats is going to look like. I like to toggle on the all-in pricing so I can see what the fees are going to be on the back end. It's really, really good stuff, and I love that peace of mind. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download their app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms do apply. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. All right, it might be Thursday, but we're going to do a six-pack because there's just so many good games, and I want to get to a bunch of these different results, and I've even got a bonus for you, so it's like a 6-1. Number one, Auburn was at LSU on Wednesday night. I just like the game itself. You know, it's not that I need to talk about it all that much. Auburn wins 87-74, but here's the thing. Johni Broome, yes, he came back and he played Saturday against Tennessee. Clearly not fully healthy all the way yet, but you could tell Wednesday night, man, that he is making improvements. He's back in the starting lineup, 26 points, 16 rebounds, 11 of which were offensive, 3 blocks and a steal. Crazy stuff for the Tigers, and I love it because I want to see this Johni Broome Cooper Flag race go on and on and on and be like just a dead heat, and I can't wait to see how that's going to play out. Auburn, I talked about those offensive rebounds for Broome as a team. They had 25 offensive rebounds. They finished with 47 total rebounds. They had a whole bunch of steals, crazy, crazy stuff for Auburn. And so this team just keeps on rolling. Number 2 in our six-pack. Number 17, Wisconsin was at Maryland on Wednesday night. The Terps defend their home court 76-68. It was a really nice, balanced scoring effort from the home team. All 5 Maryland players, or all 5 Maryland starters, I should say, between 12 and 16 points. I've been talking recently about how much I like this team, how much I believe in them, and they're starting to stack these wins now. They're 4th in the Big Ten right now, a half game ahead of Illinois, Wisconsin, UCLA, and I think it's 4 in a row, if I remember correctly, for Maryland. Let me get back to my Maryland page. Yes, 4 in a row. Wins over Nebraska, at Illinois, at Indiana, and then this home game against Wisconsin. So some really nice, impressive wins. 6 out of 7 in totality. They're at Ohio State next Thursday. So they got a kind of a little over a week off before they got to play again. So great stuff for Maryland. Derek Queen keeps rolling. It's so fun to see. And man, really intrigued by this Terps team. So keep your eyes on it. All right. Speaking of teams that are playing like a team that's kind of like, yeah, things are going well here and they're moving in the right direction, is Creighton. That's number 3 in our six-pack. Xavier at Creighton Wednesday night. Blue Jays win 86-77. A big old night for Kalkbrenner. 29 points on 12 of 17 shooting, 9 boards and a block. I bring it up because Creighton, this is now 6 in a row for the Blue Jays, 8 of their last 9, and they're sitting. You might not have realized this. They are 8-2 in Big East play. So when we talk with Mark Zanetto here in a little bit from Locked On UConn, really I put like St. John's, Marquette, and UConn in that top tier of the Big East teams. But I think Creighton would probably say, hang on there, Mr. Schade. Please don't count us out yet so much. Thank you very much. They're actually a game ahead of UConn right now. But that is kind of, I think, definitively your top 4. And so I've got no problems catching that. But for Creighton, I just keep your eye on it. And I do think UConn, once they get McNeely back, is probably better than Creighton, but they don't have him back right now. And who knows when that'll be and what he'll look like. So we keep going with that. Number 4 in our 6-pack, number 6, Houston at West Virginia. I was really curious to see how the Cougars would respond to that really tough win at Allen Fieldhouse over the weekend, that kind of miraculous win over the Jayhawks. No problem. They go to West Virginia and win 63-49. That's a very nice road win. Remember, this West Virginia team has beaten some teams, and they've looked good doing so. Houston, I mean, they led by 20 points late in the first half. It was 39-19. They're just putting it on teams right now. And so I think, we talked about the Kansas win was easily their biggest win of the season. They continue to do these things. They have the second longest winning streak in the nation at 13. At KenPom right now, Houston is 8th in offensive efficiency and 1st in defensive efficiency, man. Kelvin Sampson's team is rolling, and they're looking good doing it. In the Big 12, staying there for number 5 in our 6-pack, we talked earlier, I guess it was on Monday's show, about how Texas Tech is flying under the radar a little bit. They're up to 22nd in the nation, and they win at home over TCU 71-57 on Wednesday night. Not particularly all that crazy of a game. It was close at some times, but it's important to me because the Red Raiders just keep on winning, and I want to keep putting it out there until people start realizing what they're doing. Red Raiders now 7-2 in Big 12 play, tied for 3rd with Iowa State. And so, just keep your eyes on these dudes. At the top of the heap right now, got Arizona with Houston above them as 1 and 2. And then again, Iowa State and Texas Tech tied for 3rd. I really, getting JT Toppin from New Mexico was so huge. I mean, there's so many great pieces for this Texas Tech team, but I just love JT Toppin's game and everything he does. 18 points, 14 boards in this one on 6 of 9 shootings, perfect 6 of 6 at the free throw line, had 3 assists and just 1 turnover, a block, and a steal. I mean, that level of contribution, Coach McCaslin is going to sleep a happy man each and every night when that's going on. I love this stat about Texas Tech from this game. 16 assists on 23 made baskets. And all the 4 starters not named Fed. That's one of my favorite guys in college basketball. He's a Pittsburgh transfer, Federico. The other 4 starters all had 3 or more assists. That's winning basketball, man, all day and every day. Number 6 in our 6-pack for today. Remember, we got a little bonus bottle coming in as well in a second. Rutgers wins at Northwestern on Wednesday night, 79-72 without Dylan Harper. What's funny is this was like a late entry, a late inclusion into our 6-pack, because I had put it in my notes like, oh, Rutgers is at Northwestern without Dylan Harper. All right, fine. And in my head, I thought, probably Ace Bailey has a big game and Rutgers just doesn't win because that's what this season is. Half of that was very true. The other half was very false. Ace Bailey did have a night, but Rutgers did not lose. Great stuff there. Ace Bailey, 37 points. 37 of Rutgers' 79 points, just shy of literally half of his team's points. And it was efficient. It didn't take him like 80 million shots to get there. 13 of 20 from the field, 5 of 8 from 3, perfect 6 of 6 from the line. But he also added 6 rebounds and 3 blocks. Dude, Ace is coming along, man. It's crazy stuff. You hope Dylan Harper can get back sooner rather than later. I think it's a lower body thing going on right now for him. But still, for Rutgers to go do this at Northwestern, man, it's really, really good and good motivation for them. I still think, unfortunately, they're ultimately going to be on the outside looking in when it comes to the NCAA tournament. And that stinks because you'd love to see these 2 guys who are going to be, top picks making it in. But that's the case right now. Rutgers goes to 11-10 overall and 4-6 in Big Ten play. So that stinks. That it's just not coming along the way it should be. But what a night! What a crazy night for Ace Bailey. All right, here's our bonus. You ready for this? St. Mary's this is on the road at Santa Clara. St. Mary's wins the game 67-54. They've got something like 15 straight true road wins. That's pretty nuts. That's not even why I brought you here today for this bonus. Why talk this game? Because St. Mary's just pulled a UConn. Here's what I mean. Do you remember in the Elite 8 last year where there was like this Illinois team that was really good? They're a strong offensive team. and UConn just embarrassed them. 30-0 run, right? You remember that? That's exactly what St. Mary's just did to Santa Clara on Wednesday night. Santa Clara, in the first half, went on a 10-0 run to take a 24-22 lead with 3:14 to go in the first half. I timestamped that because from that moment, 3:14 left in the first half, their next points did not come until 9 minutes and 57 seconds left in the game. So Santa Clara did not score for the final 3:14 of the first half or the first 10:03 of the second half. So what is that? 13-17? Oh my goodness. And in that time, St. Mary's changed a 22-24 deficit into a 52-24 lead. That's a 30-0 run. Shut up. That's bonkers kind of stuff from Randy Bennett's team, man. Crazy. And that's going to set up a nuts game because I think we've got St. Mary's and Gonzaga Saturday, right? Oh, that offense from Gonzaga and that defense from St. Mary's, it is going to be come on with all that noise. All right, there's a little walk around a lot of the big stuff that happened Wednesday night. Obviously, we didn't hit everything, but a lot of what I wanted to get to. All right, we're going to talk UConn with UConn host, Locked On UConn host Mark Zanetto coming up in just a second. Stay tuned. Going to be a great conversation. It's great to be joined today on Locked On College Basketball by our guy Mark Zanetto, the host of Locked On UConn. UConn coming off last night a 72-61 win over DePaul at home, paced by Terrace Reed and Solo Ball, each with 16, Jalen Stewart with 15. Mark, UConn was down by literally getting doubled up by DePaul early in this thing, 28-14. They were down 8 at halftime, ultimately came back a big 16-2 run. What keyed this comeback for the Huskies?
Yeah, I think, Isaac, thanks for having me. I think the biggest thing that happened in this game is I don't know if Dan went crazy at halftime. I think I joked around with some fans who were at the game that maybe he was booing them because there was a few boo birds out, which is insane to me considering they won back-to-back titles. But I said, the only person that is allowed to boo his team is Dan Hurley. So maybe he said, do you hear that? They're booing you. And that kind of maybe sparked them a little bit from a coaching perspective. But as far as players go, you got to look at Terrace Reed. Terrace Reed has brought, at times, again, consistency has been an issue with this team, a physicality to UConn that they really haven't had. Samson Johnson is a totally different player. He's like a pogo stick, but he gets pushed around a ton. Terrace is a space eater, and he just bullied DePaul and really kind of took over that second half.
I thought it was so important, Mark, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, that, still no Liam McNeely. I want to ask you in a little bit if we got an update on him. But on a night when obviously he's out, Caravan just had an off night. It's what happens. He's one of 14. How nice is it that can happen? And you still wind up with a pretty comfortable 11-point win there.
Yeah, I don't know if comfortable will be the word, but yeah, it was once it got to about 12, 13 at the end, I think I felt pretty comfortable. But and I would say I was assuming the crowd did too. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that what myself and other fans have been calling for is for Terrace to step up, because this team doesn't have the shooters it had last year. Because as good of a shooter as Alex Caravan is, in a system that needs to get him open, no one is ever going to look at Alex and say, go get us a bucket. He may do it at middle ball screen.
That's right.
He may be able to do it in curls, but you need a guy like Solo to come around screens. You need him to create off the dribble. You need Aiden Mahaney, who had a nice night tonight, to do what he hasn't been able to do all year and give you 10 points off the bench. So to me, having Terrace as kind of like a slump buster, the way Adama Sanogo was a couple years ago, is really kind of what they expected from Terrace. And now he's starting to deliver a little bit. Still need consistency. I have to call out Jalen Store. I know he didn't finish strong, but my guy was 6 of 7 from the floor. He was 3 of 4 from 3, had 15 points and 4 rebounds. Another guy who, again, has to be consistent, but he has these flashes.
Ken Palm hasn't yet updated. I mean, Mark and I are literally recording like 3 minutes after this game ended, y'all. We are quick. But before this game started, UConn, we know the bugaboo, 129th in defensive efficiency. Look, they shut off DePaul's water. No field goals from 12:50 to 4:39 of the second half. Mark, is that an encouraging sign to you?
It is, but it should be expected. I think DePaul is much improved. This isn't the DePaul of last year that lost every Big East game. They had Marquette on the ropes. They played tough against multiple, top 30 Big East teams this year. Chris Holtman's done an amazing job, but the expectation at UConn is when you play an inferior opponent, you should give up 24 points to this team in the second half, not 37 in the first half. So 1,000%, I think it's an encouraging step because there hasn't been many on the defensive side. So I don't want to be negative. I want to stay as positive with this team as possible. Sure. So yeah, I think if we look at it, maybe they've incrementally gone up 4 or 5 points in Ken Pom into the 125 area, 124. But yeah, this team still has a lot of work to do. I think Liam is going to alleviate a lot of that pressure, but encouraging step forward for sure.
100%. Mark, you've said a couple times now, consistency has been an issue with this team. You also noted it with individual players as well.
Yep.
Coming into the DePaul game, obviously folks know this, but UConn had lost 3 of their last 5, but they're all close losses. At Nova by 2, versus Creighton by 5, at Xavier by 4, with wins over Georgetown and Butler sprinkled in the middle. What's been going wrong in that stretch, Mark?
Couple things. One, slow starts. It seems like every team gets out to it's one of two things. Either they get out to a quick start like DePaul did today and they're up 12-2 or something like that, or UConn gets off to a 14-4 start and then they relax. And there's mental lapses, there's defensive issues where they give up 3 or 4 layups in a row. And they start to feel themselves. So then they that's what it looks like. I can't speak for it, but it's one of those things where it's been a consistent pattern of either they get out to a big lead and they have a team come back, or that happened against Butler and Xavier, happened against Creighton in the first game, and in the game where they just lost to Creighton close. Yeah, I think that's it, man. There's just not enough consistency. Last year's team, I know this is not the same team. That was a generational team, an all-time team. Even the year before, 2023, if they got you down, you stayed down. They were the Mike Tysons of the 1990s. This isn't, if I knock you down, what was that fight a couple years ago with Tyson Fury where he got knocked down and all of a sudden he popped back up? That's every team that UConn faces this year. They get a kill shot, Evan Mia, 10-0 run, and then they come back and they come back like nothing happened. So this team lacks a killer instinct, 1,000%. Can't sugarcoat it. That's 100% the issue with this team.
Mark, you mentioned the 2023 team. You and I were texting a little bit beforehand, and I think I already know your answer to this, but it's funny that, we had this 3 out of 5 January for that 2023 team. They lost 6 of 8. I guess one of those was technically in December, but whatever, you get the point. Are there any parallels between those 2 lulls in January?
No. This team, and I'll tell you why. And this is straight from Dan Hurley's mouth. That team in 22-23 was so dominant in non-conference. They lost 0 games in non-conference. They were 14-0, and they got to the Big East, a tougher Big East than people probably gave credit for that year, and lost 6 or 7 conference games, 6 of 8. Some of that was without Donovan Clingan, some of that was without Steph Castle. So make no mistake about it, this team was without Liam McNeely now for a 7th straight game, and Ahmad Noel was out with a sprained ankle. So a very gimpy Hassan Diarra played something like 32 minutes. And I even had people say, is Hassan hurt? I was getting DMs. Yeah, he's gutting it out. He's as Hurley calls it, he's a UConn guy. He's going to give you everything he's got. But that's been the issue with this team, that a few nagging injuries. Alex is banged up. That 1 of 14 is not, it's not a blip on the radar screen. He's been struggling because he had an ankle sprain. He's gutted it out. And that's just really what's going on with this team. Little bit of unlucky, but some of it is they're doing as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can see with Alex, folks, if you go back and watch, he's just not getting the same amount of lift on his jumper right now, it feels like, and hopefully he can find that strength and get back to it. So, Mark, no rest for the weary here. Here's UConn's next 3: at Marquette, hosting St. John's, and at Creighton, who's playing a lot better right now. Oh, by the way. What needs to happen in this stretch? And I'll just add a couple things and you can just roll around with all of this. Ultimately, what is the ceiling for this UConn team? Because I think this 3-game stretch is going to have a lot to say about that. And what are the updates, if any, on Liam McNeely?
Liam is from Dan. I'll take it from the injuries and then the ceiling. And kind of those 3 games, of one of which I'll be at, which is great. I'll be
Great.
at the St. John's game, doing some media stuff there. So the at Marquette is tough because you're going to have Liam coming back likely. I'm going to say he had about a 25% chance of playing today.
Okay.
I think with a couple of days of practice, a couple of days of therapy, he was on the bench jumping around, and we've seen him sprint out to the tunnel. He's close. So I would say he's got about a 75% chance to play on Saturday. If he doesn't play, then he's likely obviously going to play against St. John's, because then there's a full week to kind of get him going. So they'll just err on the side of caution. This kid's a first round pick. He's a top 15 pick in the NBA draft. There's more at stake than UConn beating Marquette on the road and, getting their seed higher than like a 7 or a 6 right now. So Dan Hurley may be a lot of things, but he is not a selfish guy. He totally understands that. The second thing is this stretch is going to really show how tough this team is. Dan has literally called out his team in the media and called them soft multiple times.
That's right.
I did a whole show yesterday or 2 days ago when this comes out, where I literally just talked about the press conference, because there was coded messaging from Dan Hurley. Every time they brought up a player that used to play for him, he would gush. And every time there was a player that he had to talk about that he has on his team right now, he would kind of sigh. And part of that is because I feel like he's actually kind of disappointed in the character of the team, and not even just because he calls it, they're all great guys and they're all great kids. Everyone says that around them, beautiful kids, blah, blah, blah. They're just not killers. And he was like, we just need to get a little more savage warrior is what Dan has called it. So we need to get a few more savage warriors on this team. And then we can start to talk about whether this team is their ceiling is a Final Four or an Elite 8 or a Sweet 16. I think most UConn fans, considering this season at 15-6 now, 7-3 in the Big East, with all the injuries, with all the hoopla, if they're a second weekend team, I think most people would be very happy with that. And then you're kind of playing with house money. Who wants to play UConn in the Sweet 16? If they're a 7 seed and they're in the second, and they're playing a 2, what 2 seed right now wants to play UConn in the Sweet 16?
Nobody is the correct answer to that question. And I think you're right, Mark. I think that's a very logical ceiling given all the everything of this season. Second weekend, and then house money, cherry on top, whatever you want to say about it. Last quick question, I'll get you out of here. It feels to me, and I want to know if you think differently, that one of these 3, UConn, Marquette, St. John's, is probably your Big East regular season champ. Do you agree? And if so, give me the order of how you think those 3 will finish.
St. John's, Marquette, UConn. And I say that as a huge UConn homer because St. John's is playing the best of anybody. Marquette has shown a few chinks in their armor in terms of just kind of playing down to their competition, whereas when St. John's plays a DePaul, where they play a Seton Hall, they just murder them. And St. John's just looks like an old school Patino team. They're tough. They're physical. I'm going to that St. John's game on the 7th at Stores on Gamble. I'm super excited about it, but I'm also worried that we're going to be at Ted's bar at the end of that game, just kind of crying in our beers because that UConn team, especially if Liam is rusty and all that stuff, because I'm gonna end you with this, Isaac. Even though I think UConn may only finish 3rd or 2nd in the Big East, the last time a team went on a run with a UConn team that didn't have the best regular season was my boy Kemba Walker. They finished 9th that year. You don't want UConn to come into the NCAA tournament hot. We did a pregame show, tournament show earlier in the year, a season preview, and even though we had a lot of delusions of grandeur what this UConn team could be, the one thing I said to you is don't let UConn make a Final Four, because if they do, they're going to win the national championship. So I don't think anyone wants to see UConn make a run. So it's like Dan has said in the past, if you want to get us, better get us now, because we got a lot of reinforcements coming in next year too.
That's right. Well, I'll tell you what, Mark, if St. John's wins that game, I'll cash app you some money. So it'll at least be a free beer that you're crying your tears into.
I don't think I'm gonna have to pay for anything. That's what people have told me. Like, they're gonna, oh, you've been great. We're gonna set you up. But
good.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the love.
Well, then I'm not sending you anything. You dork. Hey, folks, make sure you go check out Locked On UConn. Mark Zanetto's great stuff. He's putting out men's basketball content, women's basketball content. It's so great. He's got this show rolling. You want to make sure to check out all the great stuff. Mark, thanks for your time. This guy's got to get out of here. He's got lots of post-game content to take care of. Good luck to UConn going forward. Hey, thanks so much to Mark for joining me. Really appreciate his time. Like literally joined me like right after the game, even though we had all sorts of post-game stuff to do. So grateful for all our great hosts here on the Locked On Network. Guys, if you've not subscribed to the show, make sure you do so you don't miss a second of everything going on with Locked On College Basketball. We're almost into February, and it is going to be here before you know it. So you're going to want to, if you're just catching up to college basketball, first off, welcome. We're glad you're here. But you got to get dialed in every day, man, so you know what's going on. You can catch up with all the latest in what's happening this season. If you have not joined the Locked On College Basketball Discord, that's another way to get caught up on things. It's free to join. The link for that is in the show notes. As always, we want to say apologies to the lawyer family. Let's go wild popes and shouts to our guy, Mick Bruins. We'll talk again tomorrow. Andy and I getting you ready for a crazy weekend, including the first Duke, North Carolina game of the year, and probably the biggest story of the weekend, Coach Cal heading back to Rupp. It's going to be crazy. We'll talk to you then, but for now, peace.